Welcome back, ladies. We're going to be talking about a very important subject now, and it's often the missing link into why people are not getting well. I've heard of people say, I had breast cancer, tried the natural way and it just didn't work. I had ovarian cancer, tried the natural way and it didn't work. I'm always intrigued as to what this natural way is. Because yes, definitely we need water, we need exercise, we need early nights, we need nourishing food. That's all fairly common sense, isn't it? But what I'm about to tell you today is the missing link into why those two ladies didn't heal. In fact, why many didn't heal. And it also explains why Angelina Jolie did not have to remove her breasts, and many women follow suit. They actually just needed to balance their hormones. So I'm going to begin by going through some of the symptoms of a female having a hormonal imbalance, and then I'm going to give you the symptoms of a man having a hormonal imbalance. So with a woman, it would be early periods. Do you know normal is 16 to 18? And you hardly ever hear that today. We're getting young girls who are getting their periods at 9. That's a hormonal imbalance. Very heavy periods, very painful periods. Sore breasts at period time, premenstrual tension. These are all symptoms of a hormonal imbalance. Also, polycystic ovarian syndrome, ovaries that have cysts growing on them, fibroids in the uterus, endometriosis, lumps in the breast, breast cancer, cervical cancer, also polyps in the vagina, in the uterus, also depression and heart disease. These are some of the symptoms of a hormonal imbalance. What about a man? For a man, some of the symptoms are low sperm count. A lot of couples can't have children today. Sometimes it's the man, sometimes it's the woman. Also penile dysfunction or erectile dysfunction, inability to hold an erection. In Australia, the current figures are 50% of men over the age of 40 are having trouble with this. That's crazy. Sorry, I got that mixed up. It's 40% of men over the age of 50 are struggling with this. And also prostate problems. A man with prostate problems, it's an indication of a hormonal imbalance. Too much of the female hormone can cause a man to be effeminate, and too much of the male hormone can cause a woman to be masculine. All of these are symptoms of a hormonal imbalance. What I want to do this morning is I want to take you through the monthly cycle, and then I want to show you what throws the cycle out of balance, and then I want to finish by showing you what brings the balance back. Notice that our sex hormones are made from cholesterol, and that is why they've just added breast cancer to one of the side effects of the cholesterol lowering medication. If you don't have enough cholesterol, you can't make your sex hormones. From cholesterol, your body makes pregnenolone, and from pregnenolone, your body makes progesterone. Progesterone is a key hormone because from progesterone, estrogen is made. From progesterone, testosterone is made, and from progesterone, the adrenal hormones are made. I'm going to explain the monthly cycle like a dance, because it is like a dance. Different players come onto the stage at different times of the month. Progesterone is one of our star players, and progesterone is going to be wearing a green dress in this dance, and progesterone's nickname is Happy Hormone. What's the old saying? Happy wife, happy life. You know, when you've got a happy lady who's running the home, the whole family is happy. We've got a lot of unhappy ladies because of a hormonal imbalance. Estrogen is the other player in the dance of the hormones, and estrogen's going to be wearing a red dress. And estrogen's role in the body is that of a cell proliferator. In other words, causing massive cell growth. So it is estrogen that causes the skinny young girl to develop into a beautiful, shapely woman. But if that beautiful, shapely woman gets out of shape, it's usually because of the estrogen has remained high, and we're going to look at why that is so. I liken estrogen to good slave, bad master. How we love our fires in the middle of winter, but you know, fire can get out of control and burn a whole town down. We can't function without water, and how we love diving into a stream in a hot weather, but floods can come and wipe out a town. So that's why I say I liken estrogen to fire and wood, a good slave, necessary slave, but bad master. So estrogen isn't bad, it's only when it's out of control, as you can see, as you will see in this presentation. So let's look at the monthly cycle. It's a 28-day cycle, and day 1 is the day a woman begins to menstruate. Day 1 of the monthly cycle, her progesterone levels are low. Day 1 of the monthly cycle, estrogen levels are also low, but by day 7 they're starting to rise. Up until day 11 they're quite high. So looking at this as the dance, the star player around day 14, the middle of the month, is estrogen. So what effect does estrogen have on the body? We're going to go to the stage where the dance is played out, which is the reproductive organs of a woman's body. So this is the uterus, they're the fallopian tubes, they're the eggs connected by a ligament, that's the cervix, and this is the birth canal. At this time of the month, estrogen is causing massive cell growth in the lining of the uterus, causing the blood nest once again to develop. Estrogen is also causing eggs in the ovaries to be developed. Estrogen is also causing a form of lubricant to be released in the birth canal. Now by day 14, a fully developed egg bursts forth from the ovaries. Those little filaments on the end of the fallopian tube pull the egg up. So the egg comes up into the fallopian tubes, and the fallopian tube is ever moving basically like this, causing that egg to move up, up, up. Now the hole where the egg bursts forth develops a blister, and that blister is called the corpus luteum. I'm writing it in green because corpus luteum is the main site of progesterone production in a woman's body. Can you see the importance of a woman ovulating every month? Because when she ovulates, her corpus luteum is made, and when her corpus luteum is made, that maintains progesterone. And remember, progesterone is the precursor or the balancer of all those other hormones. So progesterone is such an important hormone. I'm just trying to give you a more symmetrical dress here. So around day 14, estrogen gets the message it can go backstage, because we've already got our blood nest, we've got our lubricant and our egg. There's no need for more estrogen. With the development of corpus luteum around day 14, then progesterone levels rise. Progesterone is now the star player in the dance of the hormones. So what effect does progesterone have? Progesterone has a ripening effect on the lining of the uterus, putting the finishing touches on the uterus. Progesterone also heightens a woman's mood at this time of the month, to the point of increasing her sexual desire at this time of the month. But progesterone has another effect. Let me magnify the cervix so you can see. So the cervix is usually like this, 2 lips and a mucus plug. Under the effect of progesterone at this time of the month, the mucus plug goes, the lips come up a little tighter, and a special form of lubricant is released around the cervix, and this lubricant is very profuse, thin and stringy, and it is designed to facilitate the entry of sperm up into the uterus. So you can see the stage is set for the entry of man. Did you know that between 200 and 500 million sperm are released with one ejaculation? The sperm cell is the smallest cell in the body. Now sometimes up to half of that sperm comes straight back out. If the sperm meet this cervix, very difficult to gain entry. If the sperm meet this cervix, that lubricant literally grabs that sperm and shoots it up into the uterus, and it's got a long journey, long way to go. Some of them go down the wrong road and they basically die and get absorbed back into the blood. Some of them go down the right road and they've found their prize, which is the egg. Do you know, a young man pulled up off the YouTube a little video clip of this journey of the sperm. It's quite fascinating. And you wouldn't believe what they're up against. No wonder God put between 200 and 500 million there. And I saw a photograph one day of 15 sperm all trying to gain entry. Do you know, as soon as the sperm just gets the tip of its head in, the rest of the egg shuts down. It shuts down. It even releases a toxic fluid to kill off the other sperm. Just incredible. Occasionally, it just so happens that two enter at exactly the same time. That's when the twins share the placenta. Just incredible. As soon as that sperm is in there, its DNA starts to unravel. The DNA of the egg starts to unravel. It's just an incredible process. And within a matter of days, we've got the first 2 cells. Did you know that the DNA of a new human being is perfectly intact? So when does life begin? There's a lot of discussion on this. Yeah. Within days of conception. Because that DNA never has been and will never be. I think there's going to be some surprises on the resurrection morning, is that right? Do you know, one lady began to cry. She had had a miscarriage at only 3 weeks. She cried when she realised that there will be a little soul there. Incredible. So what happens with conception? With conception, progesterone levels soar 200%. Don't we say when a woman's pregnant, she's just blossoming? My daughter-in-law is just blossoming at the moment. Her baby's due, I think, in about 3 weeks. If a lady said, well, I didn't blossom, what would that indicate? That she's low in progesterone. And there is a reason for that. Now, there is one hormone, progesterone, but there are 3 hormones to make up estrogen. There's estrone, and that's called E1. And E1 has strong cell proliferator action on the body. There's estradiol, and it's called E2, and it has strong cell proliferator action. Whereas estriol is called the delicate estrogen. So we're going to give it a little heart there because it's a delicate estrogen. In pregnancy, it is estriol levels that rise with the progesterone. But if there was no conception, by day 26, progesterone's given the message to go backstage, to drop down, and by day 26, estrogen is also given the message to drop. Now, when both of those levels drop, the blood supply to the uterus is cut, and when the blood supply to the uterus is cut, then the bloodness comes away, and we are once again day 1 of the monthly cycle. When my children were little, just 3 and 4, I used to tell them that mother has a blood nest. And if father puts a seed in, a baby grows. But if no seed comes in, the blood nest will come away. Do you know that's the best way to start is when they're little, with just simple little descriptions like that. And then as they get older, they can ask you, and their understanding of it increases. I can remember, because we lived on a farm, that father duck would get on top of mother duck, and he'd start pecking the back of her head, and my little 3-year-old William would run along and push father duck off and get mother duck and protect her from that naughty father duck. You know, when children grow up on the farm, you know, they also get a very simple and yet you know, I believe that the way God meant it to be, the education, just as their understanding is able. I'd like to talk for a moment on sperm, because sperm is an alien to a woman's body, and when sperm enters woman's body, her immune system rises to attack. But when sperm goes through the prostate gland of a man, it takes on an immune suppressant property. So when woman's immune system rises to attack, the immune suppressant property of sperm knocks back her immune system, and sperm gets through, otherwise none of us would be here. Now, a woman's body has memory, and every time her husband's sperm enters her, she sees familiarity, and the immune system rises and goes, oh, it's just husband, we'll just stand back. And sperm enters. But can you imagine how dangerous it is if a woman has multiple partners? You can imagine how dangerous it is in the area of anal sex. how it can just wipe out that immune system. What's a pap smear? A pap smear is a little scrape or a little nick taken out of the cervix. Let's say a woman has a pap smear. That night she is intimate with her husband. Her immune system is trying to heal that, but in the presence of sperm, what does her immune system have to do? Stand back. Let's say it happens before she goes to sleep that night. And so the immune system can't deal with it even all night. And in the morning, gravity causes the sperm to come away. Let's say she's a very sexually active woman and this is happening 2 nights out of 3. 6 months later, she has another pap smear. They just so happen to take it on the same spot. What's the result? Abnormal cells. What caused the abnormal cells? The first pap smear that was never allowed to heal. Women should be told that for 4 weeks after a pap smear not to allow sperm to enter her. Would it take 4 weeks? Not in a healthy woman. But there are some women that go to bed too late, that don't exercise, don't drink enough water, live on too much coffee, are eating devitalised food. It would take 4 weeks in that woman. In a healthy woman, it should be healed in about 10 days. One lady said, my husband can't wait 4 weeks. I said, well, he needs to wear a condom, but that sperm must not enter until that cervix is healed. So let's have a look now at what's causing the imbalance. Because as we've looked at Newton's third law of motion, to every action there is an equal and an opposite reaction. There is a reason for the imbalance that we are seeing. And the main cause of the imbalance, one of the main causes, is the contraceptive pill. 1957, the first contraceptive pill was introduced to women. 1960s is called the sexual revolution. Women wanted to be able to have sex without falling pregnant, so they were given the pill. But one writer in Australia, she calls it the mass murder of millions of women. Men and women have, are, and will continue to pay a very high price for this so-called sexual freedom. What is the pill? What does it do? The pharmaceutical companies grow acres and acres of Mexican wild yam. Now that Mexican wild yam contains a plant chemical called diosgenin. And in a laboratory, diosgenin can be converted into progesterone. Pharmaceutical company can't patent that. It's like they can't patent sodium bicarb either. Because you can't patent something that's already there. So what they do is they add a few more atoms and come up with a synthetic progesterone. They add a few more atoms and they come up with a synthetic estrogen. You see, in the 80s, the pill contained pure estrogen. And they quickly acknowledged that that pure estrogen was feeding cancer. So every pill today has to contain the synthetic estrogen and the synthetic progesterone. Has that fixed everything? No. Because it's progestin or progestone, and it blocks your progesterone receptor sites. It really hasn't fixed anything. But when the woman takes the pill, it's fed into that biochemical pathway that your body uses to make its own hormones, and it causes a disruption, and the body says, must be pregnant. So it stops releasing the egg, so the woman doesn't fall pregnant. So for 3 weeks she takes the pill. And then for 1 week she stops and takes a sugar pill, and the body goes, oh, mustn't be pregnant. Choke and bleed. After a week, back on the hormones. Oh, must be pregnant. Can you see this imbalance that's starting to happen? But what I want to illustrate to you is what's this causing. You see, your number one hormone should be progesterone because it balances all the others. Month after month on the pill. No ovulation, no corpus luteum. Where's progesterone going? Month after month on the pill with its synthetic estrogen. Where's estrogen going? We've got a problem, sadly too common today, called estrogen dominance, progesterone deficiency. Good slave, bad master is now the master. And what does the cycle look like now? Estrogen's up here. Estrogen with its cell proliferator action, causing massive cell growth in the uterus. There's the fibroids. Massive cell growth on the ovaries. There's your polycystic ovarian syndrome. There's your cysts on the ovaries. There's your endometriosis. This is your abnormal cells on the uterus, on the cervix. These are your cysts in the breasts. This is your breast cancer. This is your uterine cancer, your ovarian cancer. And the lady cannot lose weight because of the high estrogen. And the ladies were the baby boomers. Now they're going through menopause. How are they faring? They can't lose weight. They're having hot flushes. Estrogen causes capillary dilation, causes all the blood to rush to the skin. Then, whoo, hot. By the way, where's progesterone in all this? Down here. The woman's depressed. Got no happy hormone at all. She has no desire for sex. And when she has sex, it's painful because the cells lining the birth canal have become so tender. There is no lubricant. She is of all women most miserable. And she knows. She looks at her husband and he's starting to look at his secretary. It's a terrible state of affairs. So the woman goes to the doctor. She's in a mess. So he gives her something to stop the hot flushes, and it will. It's called hormone replacement therapy. Why does it stop the flushes? Because now the body thinks it's pregnant again. And instead of putting its energies to the skin, it puts its energies in the breasts and the uterus. 6 years later, she has a lump. It's breast cancer. Her doctor takes her off HRT immediately. Why? He knows. So if you say to the physician, why do you do it if you know? He says, well, she was suffering and it brought her relief. That is true. But you ask the woman, what would you prefer, breast cancer or hot flushes? What's the answer? Bring on the flushes. I'll build a pool. I'll get a fan. And the other thing he says is, not every woman gets breast cancer, and that's true. But I don't know, I'm not interested in playing Russian roulette with my health. Russian roulette with my health. No, it is certainly not the answer. Now let's have a look at the daughters of the baby boomers. They're the women that are getting breast cancer. They're the women that are cutting off their breasts. They're the women who are getting polycystic ovarian syndrome. They're the women that are getting the fibroids, the cysts under the endometriosis. One 25-year-old girl said, doctor says I've got endometriosis. He says I'll be all right when I go through menopause. What's that? Another 25 years of suffering? What's he just acknowledged? When a woman goes through menopause, her hormones drop. He's just acknowledged it's that high estrogen that's feeding it, because when you go through menopause, it drops. Now, if a woman's balance is right and she goes through menopause, they drop. If a woman's imbalance is like this and she goes through menopause, what's happening? Can you see the imbalance is still there? Some women say, no, Barbara, that was 30 years ago I was on the pill. I say, that's right. And the balance is still out. Some women won't have weight gain. Some women will get breast cancer. Some women won't get breast cancer or flushes, but they'll have migraines. So there's all different scenarios. One lady who'd been on the pill for 7 years, but she lived quite healthy, she went through menopause and got all the symptoms, and she thought she'd be right because it was 30 years ago. And she'd had no symptoms up till there. And I've met some people who've never been on the pill, their mothers have never been on the pill, and yet they've got the imbalance. What's happening to the men, the sons of the women who are on the pill? They're the ones with penile dysfunction. They're the ones with low sperm count. They're the ones that experience this effeminate behaviour. I have to be careful what I say in Australia on that one. It's a touchy subject. Do you know, it's not the only cause, but it certainly are contributing factors. There's more. What happens when a chicken is fully developed in 5 weeks? That's a bit scary, isn't it? Growth stimulants. It's against the law to give chickens growth stimulants now, so they've genetically modified them to produce more estrogen. That's why if you want to have your own hens, you call them hens or chickens, you have to go out to an old guy living up in the hills who's got the same chickens that his father and his father before him had. Is that right? You need to get ones that haven't been touched. What about fish? Well, when you got 80% of women on the pill or HRT, the sewage goes out to the sea, the fish are feeding on that. And there's something else that's affecting the fish, and that is the plastics. In fact, it's huge. It's causing terrible problems in sea life now, the plastics. What about cattle? Well, you know what God meant cattle to eat, don't you? Grass. Grass. But there are a lot of grain-fed cattle now, and a lot of that grain can be mould, you know, have been touched with mould because it's not fit for human consumption, so they'll give it to the animals. You've also got growth stimulants being given to cattle, even though it's against the law. That the pharmaceutical companies have arranged it such that you can do a blood test 5 days before market and not picked up the growth stimulant. That's scary, isn't it? So if it's in the meat, it's in the product. We're going to show you how to make lentils taste fantastic, so you don't have to go to this one. You see, in fruits, vegetables, nuts, grains and legumes are all the nutrients that this human body requires. Plastics. I think it's impossible to get away from plastic. It's handy stuff. But we need to be very mindful of not storing things in plastic. So your drinking bottle, it should be stainless steel or glass, or I have one that I travel and it's a hard plastic, and that hard plastic doesn't have the chemicals in it. You see, estrogen in its molecular structure has a phenyl ring, and that phenyl ring unlocks the door to let the estrogen into the cell. So there are some chemicals today they're putting in plastics that have the phenyl ring. There's nonylphenol, and nonylphenol is what makes the plastic soft, so you can squeeze it. And another one is bisphenol A, or it's often called BPA. You know, you can get plastic that's BPA free, and they're usually the hard plastic. You can get some healthy baby bottles that are the hard plastic. But notice what they all have. They all have the phenyl ring. And that's why plastics, they're called xenoestrogens. That's estrogen mimickers. They mimic estrogen, they get into the estrogen receptor site. That's one of the reasons for this hormone imbalance epidemic that we're seeing, is the exposure to the plastics. One of the worst is hot soup into a plastic takeaway container. Also, if I'm travelling and I'm thirsty, I'll buy a bottle of water and I'll drink it, but then I'll put that in the bin. When you keep using those bottles, they keep breaking down. So be very careful of what's stored in there long. So I try and store all my food in glass or stainless steel. But also be mindful of what's touching your skin, especially ladies. There are 3 plastic fabrics. One is acrylic, polyester and nylon. And how many bras are made out of those? Do you know, I've go into the shops and investigate, and you can get a very nice sports bra from Fruit of the Loom, and it's 95% cotton. Do you know, a little bit of polyester is all right because you want a bit of stretch in there. Also, Modal, M-O-D-A-L, it's the cellulose spun from the birch tree. Also Tencel, rayon and viscose are all made out of wood pulp. So they basically can be considered natural fibres. Now it is true that cotton is the most sprayed crop in Australia. So when you buy cotton, you should wash it and put it on the clothesline. Do you know, in Australia we hang everything out on the clothesline because you know what that sun does? It disinfects. It cleanses your clothes. I said to one lady in America, I like hanging my clothes on the clothesline. She said, oh, my grandmother used to do that. We need to get those clotheslines back. What also is estrogen mimickers is these xenoestrogens in herbicides, insecticides, pesticides, chemicals. A lot of chemicals break down to substances that mimic estrogen. I'm going to tell you a story about one other aspect. This happened in about 1985 in Puerto Rico. There was an epidemic of children going through puberty at 5 years of age. and they traced it to an anabolic agent that they were giving to cattle to make them grow quickly. And it was a breakdown from a mold waste. And this mold waste is called zearalenone. And the product was called Zearalol. Now the farmers thought because it wasn't actually a chemical, they could give it to the cows right up until, a couple of weeks before market. But as I showed you on Monday, these mold wastes are quite toxic. So that zearalenone, that mold waste, has an estrogenic effect on the body. In fact, grains grow it easily. And that's why people on high wheat diets, they can be getting a little bit of an overload of zearalenone. Because a small amount is allowed through, otherwise no wheat would ever be passed. So they discovered that women were eating meat in pregnancy that had had the zearalol, causing it to grow quickly, and then that was affecting their babies, so their babies were going through puberty at 5 years of age. This is in Puerto Rico, 1985. So I'm going to show you 4 different types of estrogen. Now these are 4 cells, and these are 4 estrogen receptor sites on the cell. So this one is the xenoestrogen, and xenoestrogen is 20,000 times stronger than the plant. So there's the plant there. So, sorry, I've made a mistake there. That's human. So how big is xenoestrogen? It's huge. And this is zearalenone. And it's 1,000 times stronger than the human. So it's about this big. Well, how big's human? Human estrogen's that big. And it's 20,000 times stronger than the plant. So how big's the plant? The plant is only a tiny little thing that just slips into the receptor site like that. So where do you find the plant's estrogens? You find the plant estrogens in red clover, in some greens, in soy. And this plant estrogen, because it's a plant, it comes to the receptor site and it knocks. Excuse me, can I come in? And the cell says, no, we've got enough. So you know what the plant estrogen does? Sits in the receptor site, protecting that receptor site from these 2 guys who are the nasties. But if it knocks on the door and says to the cell, do you need me? And the cell says, oh yes please, it will come in. Psalm 104 verse 14, the Bible says God gave herbs for the service of man. I love that illustration because plants come in and say, where would you like me? I am here to serve you. Whereas these chemicals, they said, get out of my way, I'm coming in whether you need it or not. And those xenoestrogens have this strong cell proliferator action. Can you see that? Now here's the soybean grown in America today. It's called Roundup Ready. Why is it called Roundup Ready? It's been genetically modified to resist Roundup. Problem number 1. And a farmer told me this. He said 5 times before harvest the field is sprayed. He said all the weeds die and the soybean keeps growing. That's a bit scary, isn't it? So that soybean, not only has it been genetically modified, but it has 5 doses of chemicals in it. That soybean will increase breast cancer. That soybean will increase prostate cancer, not because of the natural estrogens, but because of the xeno. Can you see that? There's a lot of controversy on soy, isn't there? One lady I know, she did a thesis on soy, and when people ask her about soy, she's got a 1-line answer. She said, it's real easy. God made it good, man mucked it up, end of story. So if you eat soy, I don't eat a lot, but I might have it once or sometimes twice a week. I make sure it's non-GMO, organically grown. Then there's not a problem. What most people don't understand is what I have just explained to you, is the difference in the different estrogens. So how do we turn this around? Number one, eliminate, turn the tap off. If you don't turn the tap off, you're still going to be mopping up in the other corner. Stop the pill. Well, how are we going to stop having babies popping up everywhere? Well, sex is 2 parts, so contraception should be 2 parts. The woman's role is to know when she's ovulating, and the man's role is to wear some sort of protection when she's ovulating. So let me show you the 3 signs that a woman's body will give her. One sign is her temperature will change. So she takes her temperature before she gets out of bed every day, and she will find it'll do that over the month and go up onto a higher plane. So that drop and up onto a higher plane will happen around day 14. It might be day 13 or it might be day 15. But when she monitors her temperature, she allows herself to be able to define when her ovulation starts. The second sign is that the vaginal mucus changes. Now when estrogen's high, it's more thick and creamy and not as profuse. When progesterone levels are high, it's very profuse, really clear and stringy. So as she just tests her mucus every day, she writes it on a chart. So she makes herself a monthly chart. The third sign is that her cervix changes. So every day she just tests her cervix and comments. Now at first she's got nothing to compare it with, but as she goes on week after week after month, she'll start to be able to decipher the changes. And she will find those 3 signs will come together usually in this month here. So she will say to her husband, I'm safe, I'm not safe, I'm safe. So when she is not safe, he needs to wear a condom or muster the art of withdrawal. Apparently the Italian men used to pride themselves in not getting their women pregnant by mastering the art of withdrawal. I love that story because how often has it just been put on the woman? But you know, it should be 2 parts. So my daughter Jessica and her husband Matthew, they were married for nearly 4 years before baby Amethyst appeared. How nice to have a bit of time together before the little darlings appear. The darlings that can make or break, because sometimes it can be very challenging. So that is how you can eliminate the pill. So this is the several steps to get the hormonal imbalance. Eliminate the pill, stop the HRT. This list here will show a woman how she can manage her hot flushes without the HRT. Eliminate the meat and its products. If a person loves meat and its products, must be organic. It's actually unsafe today. But we'll show you here how vegetarian food can taste very nice. I think it's impossible to eliminate plastic, but just do the best you can. Don't have your food in there for very long. I know when I travel, there are some things I've got that, in fact, oh, how I love plastic to put my shoes in when I travel. If I was going on a picnic and I had in the car with lots of things rattling, I might put some of my things in plastic. But if I put it in plastic containers, I'll often line it with greaseproof paper, something like that. What about children at school? You can't send them to school with glass containers, but you can get BPA-free plastics today. So you just do the best you can. Have a good look at the clothes you're wearing. Go organic as much as possible. Get the chemicals out of your home. And this 4th one, to be able to protect yourself from zearalenone, try and cut out the wheat. I don't eat wheat hardly ever. Sometimes if I travel I eat a little, and I can handle it because I hardly ever eat it. If someone's got a health problem, they need to totally stop it. And once they've conquered their health problem, they might be able to have a little now and then. So number 1 is turning the tap off. Number 2, your liver has the ability to detoxify you from environmental poisons. There's the liver. And we're specifically talking about estrogen now. If the liver puts the estrogen down the hydroxy-2 pathway, it goes out of the body. If the liver takes the estrogen down the hydroxy-16 pathway, it comes back in 100 times worse. So you can see, ladies, we don't want the hydroxy-16 pathway. We want the hydroxy-2. I'm going to call it highway 2 and highway 16. And I'm going to make a list of foods and herbs and vitamins that stimulate highway 2, getting rid of that estrogen, and inhibit highway 16, which wants to keep it back in. One is the cabbage family. The cabbage family contain a plant chemical called indoles. And these indoles stimulate highway 2 and inhibit highway 16. So it can be very simple of just eating the cabbage family every day. So that might be broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, kale, bok choy, and of course cabbage. High estrogen opposes thyroid function. So people that have a thyroid problem, it can be a hormonal imbalance, and people that have a thyroid problem, they need to be cautious of raw brassica. Raw brassica or raw cabbage family contain goitrogens, and goitrogens inhibit thyroid function. So if someone's got underactive thyroid gland, they need to cook all their cabbage family, because cooking disarms the goitrogens. If someone has a hyperthyroidism, hyperactive thyroid, go for the raw cabbages, because you want to slow that thyroid down. Can you see that difference? Just a comment as we talk on the cabbage family. So now we're looking at what else can stimulate highway 2 and inhibit highway 16 is flaxseed. So that's a really easy one to grind up for your breakfast every day. And licorice. If you've got high blood pressure, forget the licorice. Also, vitamin B, particularly vitamin B6, 9 and 12. Now the highest source of your B vitamins is raw nuts and seeds, but if someone has a hormonal imbalance, they may initially need to supplement. So this one's turning the tap off. This one's getting rid of the excess estrogen, and there is a cream called the Anna's Wild Yam Cream that is our third point. The Anna's Wild Yam Cream contains the plant chemical diosgenin, and when this cream is applied to the skin, the fat cells take it up and it stimulates the pathway that your body uses to make its own progesterone. In America, you can buy progesterone cream, but you keep putting that in, the body gets lazy. And every year when I come to America, I meet women who've been on the progesterone cream and it's just not doing it anymore. But if you apply the yam cream, can you see what it's doing? This is why I like it. It's stimulating your body to make its own. So it's superior. So the directions are one finger dip, that's just past the nail bed. So finger in past the nail bed, that's about the right amount. Inside of arms one time, abdomen another time, inside of thighs another time, chest, so you alternate your spots. And a woman applies it morning and night, so two times a day for 3 weeks a month. So ladies who are here on our program who are interested in beginning the Anna's Wild Yam Cream, I think Sunday's the 1st of April, yeah? So if you apply it 1st of April or nearly the 1st of April, then you will apply it for the first 3 weeks of every month. And a lot of women find it easy to eliminate the first or the last week of the month, and then it's easy to remember. How long would a woman apply it for? At least 1 year. One lady said, I tried it for 2 months and it didn't work. I said, well, let me show you what's happening at 2 months. So this lady had the imbalance. After 2 months, we're about there. Where do we want to be? Here. She said, well, how long do I have to be on it? And I said, well, it's been out for 20 years. The good news is it won't take 20 years, but it may take 1 or 2. I met a 9-year-old girl when I was in the Bronx who already had her periods, developed breasts at 8. So she went on the Anna's Yam Cream. I met a 90-year-old woman who was on the Anna's Wild Yam Cream for her osteoporosis. You see, when you boost progesterone cells, you boost osteoblast cells. They're your bone building cells. So if you're between 9 and 90, do it for depression. I've seen many people, especially women, get off their antidepressants by implementing what we're going to start looking at tomorrow, which is the 8 laws of health. So that's fresh air, sunshine, nourishing food, early nights, stop the stimulants, implementing the 8 laws of health, going on the Anna's Wild Yam Cream, boosting progesterone, easing off your antidepressants. Isn't that good news? What about men? Well, a man would go on the yam cream, and they make a cream now called His Yam Cream. And it's the same really as the Anna's, but it's got a few herbs specific for men. So the His Yam Cream, a man will apply just a little bit, just the very tip of the finger twice a day, and he doesn't have a break because men aren't cyclic like women. Why would a man be on it? To help if he was a little effeminate. It would help with his masculinity, to help get the testosterone levels down to conquer prostate problems. One man said, forgive the French, he said, this cream just puts lead in my pencil. So it helps with penile dysfunction. So let's go back to the menopausal women. They're overweight, yes, this will help. They've got no desire for sex, yes, this will help. Sex is painful, there's no lubricant, the cells are they're very, very tender. Well, there's something that a woman can do that will get help with that within a couple of weeks, and that is yoni stones. Now, these were developed in the Chinese dynasty to get the concubines sexually toned for the emperor. They're made out of nephrite jade. Nephrite jade is the best. It's like a marble. You want a very dense stone. And the first and the largest stone, they're like an egg, is about that big. The next egg is a little bit smaller, and then you've got one that's smaller again. And the largest nephrite jade yoni stone is inserted right up until into the birth canal until it touches the cervix. Now these yoni stones have little holes at the bottom, so a woman can put a little bit of dental floss in so it can be easily extracted. Now what a woman will do is she'll wear the largest stone for 1 hour a day, week 1, 2 hours a day, week 2, 3 hours a day, week 3, 4 hours a day, week 4, until she gets up to the 5th week where she's wearing the stone for 5 hours a day. She will wear that stone for 5 hours a day for about 6 months. By then her pelvic floor is very strong. And several times while she's wearing it, she can do Kegels. She can strengthen her muscles against it. Now, before I tell you the results and the feedback that I've been getting from women, after 5 months, she can go to the middle-sized stone. And she will start wearing that 5 hours a day for about 6 months. And by then, her pelvic floor is strong enough to hold the smaller stone. So what's happening with women wearing this yoni stone, because it's so strengthening their pelvic girdle, that it's healing prolapses. You see, we're ever fighting gravity, yeah? Where it drops down. But if your pelvic floor muscles are strong, you will never have a prolapse. So also I'm seeing women that have been incontinent, no more incontinence after wearing the yoni stone. Now, several women have said to me, sex is no longer painful. It appears that when you strengthen that pelvic girdle, it pulls the blood to the area, which feeds all the cells and strengthens the cell lining the birth canal. So sex is no more painful. I've had several women say to me, Barbara, my lubricant has returned. I've had couples say to me in their 50s, thank you, Barbara, our sex life has returned. Our husband can now perform because of his yam, and the lady doesn't find it painful anymore. Do you know, I believe God meant for human beings to be enjoying their sexual relations as a married couple till their 80s. But I find people in their 50s, and sometimes if the man is very sexually active, he gets very frustrated because his poor wife, he doesn't know what to do. He needs to be relieved, but his wife, it's so painful. So I've seen many couples return to that, enjoying that part of their relationship again. My daughter Jessica, she had a home birth. Oh, her baby's 7 now. 7 years ago, and the midwife who attended her was in her 50s, and she told her a story. She said, I had a prolapse of my vagina and partly uterus. She said, I went to the doctor. He said, you will need an operation and I will have to use the mesh. You've heard of the mesh? In Australia there are 800 court cases at the moment because of what that mesh has done. Where does the problem lie? Is it the mesh? The poor doctors, they have to use the mesh because there is no tone in the muscles. Can you see that? If there was tone in the muscles, they wouldn't need the mesh. But actually, if there was tone in the muscles, there wouldn't have been a prolapse. Can you see all that? She didn't want that. So she went and Googled yoni stones, came up with nephrite J. She ordered her 3 stones. They come in little velvet bags. She began to wear her larger stone. After 3 months, she went back to the doctor. He said, what have you done? There is no need for you to have an operation. You don't have a prolapse anymore. One young woman I know had twin girls. Both were 6 pounds. Can you imagine the weight? And ever after, whenever she cried or coughed or laughed, she'd lose a little urine. She just thought, well, this is what I have to wear because I carried such heavy babies. But muscle knows no age. You can strengthen those muscles. She began to wear the yoni stone. She said within 2 months, she could laugh, cough, cry. No more incontinence. So can you see why they're becoming popular? And really, it's just a way to strengthen the pelvic girdle, to strengthen that pelvic floor. We'll answer questions in a minute. So there ends my lecture on which has freed and revolutionised many women and men. Thank you.